10:47 p.m., May 21st, 1944. Captain Heinz-Wolfgang Schnaufer is strapped into the cockpit of his Messerschmitt Bf 110 G4 at St. Trond airfield in Belgium. The night is pitch black. No moon, no stars, only absolute darkness. In his headset, the static-laced voice of the ground controller crackles. Large formation of enemy bombers approaching from the west. Estimated 200 to 300 Lancasters. Target likely Dusseldorf or Cologne. What Schnaufer doesn't know is that in the next 35 minutes, he will shoot down 11 of these bombers. His aircraft will land with only 17 liters of fuel remaining. And the RAF will have a new name for him, the Ghost of St. Trond. Schnaufer is 22 years old, from Calv in the Black Forest, the son of a wine merchant. He joined the Luftwaffe in 1939, became a pilot, specializing in night fighting. By May 1944, he already had 73 confirmed kills, all at night, all against British bombers. But tonight will be different. Next to him sits his radio operator, Staff Sergeant Fritz Rumpelhardt, 28 years old, from Essen, a radio technician before the war. He's been flying with Schnaufer since 1942. Behind them, in the rear section of the Bf 110, sits the gunner and radar operator, Corporal Wilhelm Gensler, 24 years old, from Stuttgart, a specialist with the FUG 220 Lichtenstein SN2 radar. These three men form a crew, a perfectly synchronized team. Together, they have destroyed 73 enemy bombers. They trust each other with their lives. The Bf 110 G4 is not a pretty aircraft. It's a workhorse of the night. Wingspan 16 meters, length 12 meters, two Daimler-Benz DB605 engines, each producing 1 now 475 horsepower, top speed 550 kilometers per hour, but with the radar array, only about 480. The distinctive stag antler antennas of the Lichtenstein radar protrude from the nose. They look absurd, almost comical, but they are deadly. With them, Gensler can detect enemy bombers at a distance of 4 kilometers. In the absolute darkness, the radar is their only eyes. The FUG 220 Lichtenstein SN2 radar was a technological revolution. Developed by Telefunken in 1943, after the Allies managed to capture and jam the older FUG 202 model. The SN2 operated on a different frequency, 90 MHz, and was immune to British window jamming measures. The radar screen showed green dots against a black background. Each dot was an enemy aircraft. Gensler had to interpret the dots, guide Schnaufer to the target. One mistake, and they could fly blindly into the darkness, lose the target, maybe even collide with a bomber. The crew had a combined 114 hours of night flying. 73 kills, but every night flight was a risk. Statistics showed the average survival rate for a night fighter pilot was 30 missions. Schnaufer had already flown 210 missions. He was a statistical anomaly. Either he was brilliant or he had incredible luck, probably both. The armament is brutal. Two 30mm Mk108 cannons and two 20mm MG151 cannons in the nose. And the special edition, two additional 20mm MG-FF cannons. Mounted at an oblique angle upwards, the pilots call this installation jazz music. It allows them to fly under a bomber and fire directly into its belly, into the fuel tanks, without being exposed to the fire from the tail gunners. 10:51 p.m. Schnaufer starts his engines. The two DB605 engines roar. The aircraft rolls down the runway, lifts off. In seconds, the darkness swallows them. Schnaufer is flying solely on instruments. Altimeter, 500 meters. Climbing. Artificial horizon, wings level. Speed 320 kilometers per hour, accelerating. Compass northwest towards the reported bomber formation. At 11:03 p.m. the ground controller reports formation now over Belgium, altitude 5,500 meters, heading east-northeast, likely target Rhineland. Schnaufer pulls the aircraft higher, 4,000 meters, 5,000 meters, 5,500 meters. The air thins, grows colder. In the unheated cockpit, the temperature drops to -15 degrees Celsius. Schnaufer and his crew are wearing electrically heated suits, but the cold still creeps in, into their fingers, into their toes, into their bones. 11:14 p.m. Gensler reports radar contact, distance 3,800 meters, altitude same, heading east. Schnaufer feels his pulse accelerate. After 23 minutes of blind flight through absolute darkness, they have found their quarry. He adjusts the course. Gensler gives precise instructions. 5 degrees to the left, distance 3,200 meters, same altitude. Schnaufer follows the instructions blindly. He trusts Gensler absolutely. In night fighting, the radar operator is as important as the pilot. Distance 2,000 meters. Schnaufer throttles back. He doesn't want to close too quickly. A Lancaster bomber flies at about 350 kilometers per hour. The Bf-110 can reach 480. Schnaufer has to match the speed. Slowly approach from behind. Without being noticed, distance 800 meters. Schnaufer peers into the darkness. Nothing. Only blackness. Then suddenly he sees it. A faint shadow against the less black night sky. The distinctive silhouette of a Lancaster bomber. 4 engines, long wings, a massive aircraft laden with bombs, probably 6,000 kilograms of high explosive and incendiary bombs, destined for German cities. Schnaufer approaches from below and behind. The classic night fighter tactic. The Lancaster's tail gunner cannot see him in this position. Schnaufer flies under the bomber, positioning himself directly beneath it. Distance now only 70 meters. He can see the exhaust flames from the 4 Rolls-Royce Merlin engines. He aims with the reflector sight. The obliquely mounted cannons are aimed directly at the belly of the Lancaster, at the wing tanks. 11:18 p.m. Schnaufer fires. The two 20mm MGFF cannons hammer. Tracer rounds streak upwards. Hit. The shells penetrate the thin belly armor of the Lancaster, explode in the fuel tanks. Instantly, fire erupts. The Lancaster begins to burn. Orange-red flames lick from the wings. The bomber rolls to the side, goes into a dive. Schnaufer pulls away, avoids the burning wreckage. First kill, 11:18 p.m. Schnaufer reports over the radio, kill confirmed, burning 4-engine bomber. Gensler is already scanning for the next target. Radar contact, distance 2,400 meters, 10 degrees to the right, altitude 200 meters above us. Schnaufer climbs, turns, approaches. What Schnaufer realizes, the Lancasters are flying in a loose bomber stream, not a tight formation. Instead, hundreds of bombers are spread across a corridor 20 kilometers wide and 100 kilometers long. This has been RAF tactics since 1943. A tight formation would be vulnerable to flak. A bomber stream is harder to defend, but also harder for night fighters to attack. Every hunter must hunt every bomber individually, but Schnaufer is one of the best. Perhaps the absolute best. He possesses a gift. He can see in the darkness what others cannot. His night vision is extraordinary, and he has something even more important. He feels no fear. The absolute darkness, 18,000 feet above the earth. Surrounded by enemy bombers whose tail gunners are just waiting to nail a night fighter, the risk of a mid-air collision, all of it paralyzes other pilots. Schnaufer feels only concentration. 11:23 p.m. Second bomber in his sights. Again, Schnaufer approaches from below. Again, the jazz music. Fire. Hit. The Lancaster explodes in a massive fireball. The bomb load detonates. The shockwave rattles Schnaufer's Bf-110. He's forced downward, loses 600 feet of altitude. Recovers the aircraft. Rumpelhart shouts, "Too close! That was too close!" Schnaufer says nothing. His heart races, but his hands are steady on the control stick. Second kill, 11:23 p.m., 5 minutes after the first. Gensler is already searching for the next target. The Lichtenstein SN2 radar shows multiple contacts. The bombers are everywhere. Schnaufer selects the next one. Distance 10,000 feet, same altitude. He hunts. Panic spreads among the Lancaster bombers. The crews have seen the explosions. 2 bombers in 5 minutes. They know a night fighter is among them. The tail gunners desperately scan the darkness, but they can see nothing. The German fighter attacks from below. Invisible, deadly. Pilots begin evasive maneuvers, up and down, left and right, but it doesn't help. Schnaufer is too good. In one of the Lancasters, half a mile from Schnaufer, sits Staff Sergeant Thomas Mackenzie, 21 years old, from Chicago. Tail gunner. He stares into the darkness, his hands gripping the Browning machine guns. He's afraid. Everyone is afraid. This is his 8th mission. Statistically, he must survive 30 missions to complete his tour, 22 missions to go. He thinks of his girlfriend back home, the promise he made her, "I'm coming back." He prays, "Please, God, let me come home." 3 minutes later, Mackenzie's Lancaster is shot down by Schnaufer. Mackenzie has no chance to bail out. The bomber explodes in midair. 7 men die instantly. In Chicago, a telegram will be delivered, and a promise will be broken. 11:27 p.m., 3rd Lancaster. Schnaufer approaches. But this bomber is maneuvering, climbing, diving, turning. Schnaufer must adjust his tactics. He can't attack from directly below. Instead, he approaches from the rear below left, positions himself 300 feet behind and 150 feet below the Lancaster, fires the nose cannons. The 30 meters Mk-108 and the 20 meters MG-151 hammer, a salvo of 30 shells in 3 seconds. The Lancaster is hit. Engine number 2 explodes, flames shoot from the wing. The bomber goes into a spin, 3rd kill. 11:27 p.m. Schnaufer is now in a rush. His mind is crystal clear. Every movement is precise. He is a killing machine, but he feels no joy. He feels only duty. These bombers carry death to German cities, to Cologne, to Düsseldorf, to Hamburg, to women and children. He stops them. That is his job. 11:31 p.m. 4th bomber. This one is flying lower at 16,000 feet. Schnaufer dives, approaches. Gensler guides him perfectly. Distance, 2,000 feet, 1-300, 650. Schnaufer sees the silhouette, jazz music, fire. The Lancaster bursts into flames immediately. The crew bails out. Schnaufer sees parachutes open, white mushrooms in the darkness. 7 men. They will survive, become prisoners of war. Better than burning alive. 4th kill, 11:31 p.m. In 13 minutes, Schnaufer has destroyed 4 Lancasters. But the fuel is running low. Rumpelhart reports fuel at 40%. Schnaufer knows he must return soon. But the night is still young, and there are so many targets left. The RAF commanders on the ground in England are receiving desperate radio messages. Bombers report a ghost attacking from nowhere. Some call him the Black Death, others the Invisible Hunter. The loss rate is skyrocketing. Tonight, 27 Lancasters will not return. Nearly 200 crew members will die or be captured, and 1 man is responsible for 11 of them. 11:35 p.m. 5th bomber. Schnaufer attacks from the side. This Lancaster has spotted its hunter. The tail gunner fires. Tracer bullets streak towards Schnaufer's Bf-110. He evades, dives underneath, comes up from below. Jazz music, fire, hit. The 5th Lancaster goes up in flames. But a shell from the tail gunner has struck home. The left wing of the Bf-110 shows a hole, a foot in diameter. Schnaufer feels the aircraft pull slightly to the left. He compensates with the controls. 5th kill. 11:35 p.m. Rumpelhardt says, "We've been hit. Wing damage." Schnaufer replies calmly, "Aircraft is still flyable." We continue. Gensler finds the 6th target. In this moment, Schnaufer experiences something few pilots ever have. He reaches a state of absolute concentration. The Japanese call it mushin, empty mind, no thoughts, no fear, no doubts, only action. His eyes, his hands, his aircraft, everything is one. He is no longer Schnaufer, the 22-year-old captain from Kull. He is the hunter, pure, deadly, unstoppable. 11:39 p.m., 6th bomber, approaching, aiming, firing, hitting, burning, crashing. 11:42 p.m., 7th bomber. This one tries to escape. Going into a steep dive. Schnaufer follows, 16,000 feet, 14,500, 13,375 miles per hour. The aircraft vibrates. The hole in the wing grows larger. Pieces of metal are tearing off. But Schnaufer follows relentlessly. 11,500 feet. He aims, fires, hits. The Lancaster explodes in mid-air. 7th kill. 11:42 p.m. Schnaufer pulls up. Back to 16,000 feet. Rumpelhardt reports, "Fuel at 25%. We must return." Schnaufer says, "Not yet." Gensler, next target. The radar operator hesitates. Then, contact, distance 9,000 feet, 15 degrees to the left. In England, at RAF Bomber Command Headquarters, the scale of the disaster is slowly becoming clear. The loss reports are piling up. One sector reports 5 bombers lost in 10 minutes. Another reports 4. The commanders know this is not flak. This is not coincidence. This is a single, exceptionally deadly night fighter. But they can do nothing. The bombers cannot turn back. The attack must be carried out. The men must persevere. 11:46 p.m. 8th bomber. Schnaufer approaches. But this Lancaster is different. The crew is experienced, has survived night fighter attacks. The pilot is performing wild, evasive maneuvers, climbing 2,500 feet, diving 2,000 feet, pull hard left, hard right. Schnaufer's behind you. His damaged Bf-110 screams under the stress. The hole in the wing grows larger. Metal pieces are flying off, but Schnaufer stays on him. 3 minutes of relentless pursuit. Then, the Lancaster pilot makes a critical error. He levels out for 5 seconds, just to check his bearings. 5 seconds. That's all it takes. Schnaufer fires. Hit! The 8th Lancaster explodes in flames. 8th kill. 23:49 hours. Fuel at 18%. The warning light is flashing red. Rumpelhardt yells, "We have to get back. Now!" Schnaufer retorts, "Just 2 more." Only 2 more. Gensler, the normally calm radio operator, says, "Captain, if we don't head back soon, we'll have to crash land in enemy territory." Schnaufer considers. 1 second. 2. Then, next target, 23:52 hours, 9th bomber. Schnaufer attacks brutally, no finesse, straight from the rear into the fire of the tail gunner. The Lancaster's 50 caliber Browning machine guns hammer away. Shells are striking the Bf-110. Cockpit windows shatter. Schnaufer feels a sharp pain in his left shoulder. He ignores it, fires. The 30mm cannons tear apart the Lancaster. The bomber breaks apart in mid-air. 9th kill, 23:52 hours. Rumpelhardt shouts, "You're bleeding." Schnaufer says, "Just a scratch. Last target." Gensler now. The radar shows a contact. Distance, 1,800 meters, directly ahead. Schnaufer throttles up. The damaged DB-605 engines howl. Oil leaks from the left engine. Smoke is billowing. The plane wants to tip to the left. Schnaufer fights with everything he has to keep it straight. Beads of sweat run down his face, despite the -15 degrees. 23:55 hours, distance 400 meters. Schnaufer sees the 10th Lancaster, positions himself. But then something unexpected happens. A second Lancaster flies directly in front of him, only 200 meters away. At the same altitude, 2 targets, 1 chance. Schnaufer makes a lightning-fast decision. He fires on the closer Lancaster. The cannons are almost empty. Only 30 rounds left, but it's enough. The 10th Lancaster is hit, burning, going down. Immediately, Schnaufer swings the nose upwards, aims at the more distant Lancaster, now 300 meters ahead and 100 meters higher. Last. Ammunition. Schnaufer fires. The cannons hammer. Then click. Empty. The last 5 shells fly through the night. 1 misses, 2 miss, and then 2 hits. Directly into the right-wing fuel tank of the Lancaster. Explosion. The 11th bomber goes up in flames. 10th and 11th kills. 23:56 hours. In 35 minutes, Schnaufer has destroyed 11 Lancaster bombers. 77 crew members dead or captured. His ammunition is gone. His fuel is at 12%. His left engine is on fire. His aircraft is severely damaged. His shoulder is bleeding. But he has done his job. Schnaufer turns away. Course back to St. Trond, 180 kilometers away, with 12% fuel. Impossible. But he has no choice. Rumpelhart calculates, at optimal speed, 280 kilometers per hour, minimal engine power. We may have a 15% chance. Schnaufer says, then we'll use those 15%. 012 hours, May 22nd, 1944. They fly through the darkness. The left engine is shut down, no longer burning, but also not working. They are flying on one engine. The speed drops to 250 kilometers per hour. They are slowly losing altitude. 4,800 meters, 4,600, 4,400. Schnaufer fights with the controls, keeping the machine in the air. Fuel at 8%, 6%, 4%. Rumpelhart says, we're not going to make it. We have to crash land. Schnaufer says, St. Trond is 40 kilometers away. We will make it. 0.31 hours. They see the lights of St. Trond. The runway is lit, a cross of lights in the darkness. Schnaufer calls the tower. Emergency landing, damaged aircraft, 1 engine out, no fuel. The air traffic controllers immediately clear the runway. Fire trucks and ambulances stand ready. Schnaufer goes into the landing approach. Altitude 800 meters, 600, 400. Speed 200 kilometers per hour. Too fast, he throttles back. 180. Altitude 200 meters, 100 meters. The fuel gauge shows 2%, about 17 liters in a tank of 950 liters. 50 meters, 30 meters. Schnaufer can see the runway. Then the right engine dies, no fuel. The plane drops. Schnaufer pulls the nose up, using the last of his speed. The Bf-110 sinks, 10 meters, 5 meters. The wheels touch the runway, hard, very hard. The right landing gear strut breaks. The plane tips to the right, skids across the runway. Sparks fly, metal screams. 200 meters, 150 meters, 100 meters. Slower, slower, stop. 0:32 hours. Silence. The engine is off. The aircraft sits at an angle on its destroyed right side, but they are alive. Schnaufer, Rumpelhart, Gensler, all 3 are alive. Mechanics and medics run to the aircraft, open the hatches, help the crew out. Schnaufer climbs out of the cockpit. His left arm is bleeding through his uniform. A piece of shrapnel had hit him, an 8-centimeter-long wound. The medic wants to treat him immediately. Schnaufer shakes his head. Inspect the aircraft first. He walks around the Bf-110. The sight is shocking. The left wing has a hole 80 centimeters in diameter. The right landing gear strut is broken. The cockpit window is shattered. The mechanics count 37 bullet holes, 37 hits, and the machine survived. German engineering. The chief mechanic opens the fuel tanks, measures 17 liters in one tank. The other tanks are completely empty. He says to Schnaufer, "Captain, you had fuel for maybe 3 more minutes of flight time." 3 minutes, if Saint Trond had been 5 kilometers further away, you would have crashed. Schnaufer nods, says nothing. He knows he danced with death that night, and he won, but only just. The squadron commander arrives in person, Colonel Günther Radusch. He reads the preliminary combat report, 11 four-engine bombers in 35 minutes. He looks at Schnaufer. "Captain, this is extraordinary, even for you." Schnaufer replies, "My crew was perfect, Gensler on the radar, Rumpelhardt on the radio. Without them, I am nothing." In the following days, the Luftwaffe analyzes the battle. The RAF had lost 27 Lancasters that night. Schnaufer alone was responsible for 11, almost 41% of the total losses. A single pilot, a single aircraft. Such numbers were unprecedented. RAF intelligence learns through German radio transmissions of a pilot who shot down 11 bombers in one night. They call him the Ghost of Saint Trond, the invisible hunter, the Black Death. British bomber crews develop almost panicked fear of this one name, Schnaufer. When rumors circulate that he is in the air, the nervousness rises exponentially. What made Schnaufer so deadly? Several factors. First, exceptional night vision. Post-war tests revealed his ability to see in near-total darkness was roughly 3 times better than average. Second, ice-cold composure. Other pilots got nervous, made mistakes. Schnaufer always remained focused. Third, perfect crew coordination. Gensler and Rumpelhardt had worked with him for years. They were a unit. Fourth, tactical brilliance. Schnaufer knew every weakness of the Lancaster bomber. He knew exactly where to strike, but there was also a fifth factor, one that no one openly discussed. Schnaufer had no problem killing men. Many pilots hesitated at the last moment, saw the human beings inside the enemy aircraft. Schnaufer only saw targets. This made him effective, but it also made him something else, a machine. After the war, Gensler, the radio operator, gave an interview. He said, "Schnaufer was the best pilot I ever flew with, but he was also the coldest. After a kill, he showed no emotion, no joy, no regret, just focus on the next target. Sometimes I wondered what was going on in his head. I still don't know." Schnaufer himself rarely spoke about his feelings. In a 1944 interview, he simply stated, "I'm doing my duty. The bombers want to destroy German cities. I stop them. There's nothing more to say." But there was more to say. Much more. Behind those 121 downed bombers were 847 men, British, Canadian, Australian airmen. Some burned alive in their crashing planes. Others bailed out, landed in German captivity. Some died on impact. Every one of them had a family, parents, siblings. Some had wives and children. Across England, 847 families received telegrams. Your son, your husband, your brother is missing, presumed dead. For some, confirmation came later. For others, only uncertainty remained. Decades of uncertainty. This is the dark side of Schnaufer's brilliance. Every military triumph is also a human tragedy. Those 121 bombers weren't just machines. They were 847 lives, extinguished in the blink of an eye. Schnaufer continued fighting until the end of the war. His final kill count, 121 enemy bombers, all at night. The most successful night fighter ace in history. No other nation, in any other war, ever produced a pilot with similar numbers. The number 121 is hard to fathom. 121 four-engine bombers, averaging 7 crew members per Lancaster. That means around 847 men, almost an entire battalion. Schnaufer alone had killed more enemy airmen than some entire fighter wings. But that number says nothing about the psychological cost. After the war, documents were found, diary entries from Schnaufer dating back to 1945. He wrote, "Every night I see them, the burning bombers. Hear the screams over the radio. Sometimes I wake up and my hands smell of cordite, but that's impossible. The war is over. Or is it?" A war comrade who spoke with Schnaufer after 1945 reported, "He drank too much. Wine, liquor, everything. He said that was the only way he could sleep. Without alcohol, the dreams came." The night of May 21st, 1944, haunted him especially. 11 bombers in 35 minutes. He called it his greatest triumph and his greatest failure. I never understood what he meant. He survived the war. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered. Schnaufer was interrogated by the Allies, then released. He was 23 years old. He had 5 years of war behind him. He had killed 847 men. How does one live with that? After the war, Schnaufer took over the family business, the wine merchant company. He got married, had children, tried to live a normal life. But the night of May 21st, 1944 haunted him. In his dreams he saw burning bombers, heard screams. Sometimes he woke up in a cold sweat. Tragically, Schnaufer died in 1950, at just 28 years old, in a car accident in France. A senseless death. The man who survived 121 air battles died on a road. His widow later said maybe it was for the best. He had never found peace. The war was inside him, always. Hundreds attended his funeral in Calve. Former Luftwaffe comrades, villagers, even some British veterans who stood respectfully in the background. One of them, a former Lancaster pilot, told a journalist, "I hated him during the war. We all did. He was death itself to us. But now I just see a young man who died too young, like so many in that damn war." Rumpelhardt and Gensler, Schnaufer's crew members, survived the war. Both went into civilian occupations. Both rarely spoke about their time as night fighters. But in 1985, at a veterans reunion, Gensler gave a rare interview. He said, "The night of May 21st was the most intense of my life. 35 minutes of pure adrenaline. After that, I couldn't sleep for 3 days. I kept seeing the green radar blips, hearing Schnaufer's calm voice. Next target, like it was yesterday." The lessons from Schnaufer's night of May 21st, 1944, influenced aerial warfare for decades. The importance of radar in air combat, crew coordination as a crucial factor, the psychological toll of night operations, the tactical use of darkness as a weapon. All of that was analyzed, studied, codified into manuals. U.S. Air Force tactic manuals from the 1950s cited Schnaufer's techniques: how to conduct radar-guided interceptions, how to conserve ammunition through precise aiming, how to use darkness as an advantage. Ironically, American pilots learned from a German ace how to kill more effectively. The Soviet Union also studied Schnaufer. KGB files released after 1991 reveal Soviet Air Force academies analyzed every one of Schnaufer's documented engagements. They wanted to understand what made him so successful. The answer was complex. Technology was important. Tactics were important. But most important, the ability to remain calm under extreme stress that couldn't be taught, that was innate. Modern combat pilots have advantages Schnaufer never had. Night vision goggles show the world in green phosphorescent detail. Infrared sensors detect the heat of enemy engines from 30 miles away. Radar can track hundreds of targets simultaneously. Self-guided missiles do the work Schnaufer had to do with cannons. Modern air warfare is high-tech, almost robotic. But one thing hasn't changed: the loneliness. A pilot, alone in his cockpit, thousands of feet above the earth, fighting a battle only he can understand. The decisions he makes in split seconds mean life or death, not just his own, but also that of his enemies. This burden is carried by every combat pilot, in every war, in every era. Modern combat pilots fly with night vision goggles, infrared sensors, and radar systems that are infinitely more advanced than Staff Sergeant Schnaufer's Lichtenstein SN2 radar. But the basic principles remain the same: approach unseen, strike from the darkness, vanish before the enemy can react. The RAF also learned its lessons. After May 1944, they improved their night defense tactics immensely. Bombers flew with more electronic countermeasures. Escort night fighters were deployed. Losses decreased. But they were never as low as they were before the rise of the ghost of St. Trond. What would you feel in Schnaufer's position, alone in the darkness, 18,000 feet above the earth, hunting and being hunted simultaneously? The knowledge that one mistake means death, the responsibility for 2 crew members, the moral conflict between duty and humanity. It's a lot to process. These questions are not theoretical. Thousands of pilots, on all sides, in all wars, have had to answer them. Some found answers, others did not. Schnaufer never found peace, perhaps because there is no peace for men who have caused so much death, even if it was in the service of their country. These are not stories from movies. This really happened, and on May 21st, 1944, over Belgium and Germany, real men, in real planes, fought a real war. They bled, they died. Their stories deserve to be told, not to glorify war, but to remember, to understand, to honor. The story of Heinz-Wolfgang Schnaufer is a story of extraordinary ability, incredible courage, and tragic costs. A 22-year-old man who accomplished what seemed impossible in a single night, and who spent the rest of his short life living with it, every single day. Today, over 80 years later, museums commemorate Schnaufer. His Bf 110 no longer exists, destroyed in the war, but the 2 tail fins, on which he marked his 121 kills or takedowns, survived. One is in the Imperial War Museum in London. The other is in the Australian War Memorial in Canberra. It's ironic that his greatest achievements are now displayed in the countries of his former enemies. Perhaps that's fitting. War knows no winners, only survivors and the dead.